Out came the baby on the cooking pot. I started to look around and poke. Oh, guys, please! Like, oh my god, this looks ugly. The baby actually had the navel cord twice around her neck. There's the baby, but look in the bucket. That airport roof was like a strainer. Like, hi, you know, back home. A small baby, 2 children, want to go home, and there was no home.
Mommy, in the hospital, I
bet with the doctor. And then she started cuss me out and this, and I was like, well.
Hey my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Mel. And Una already don't know, mommy's here, so that means another story time. So we are now at story time part 7.
Yeah.
The last time we left off at that mommy got so homesick I had to call mommy, her mommy, and you know, went back to Germany. So yeah, you can take it from here, mommy.
Okay, so disclaimer. The stories that I'm going to tell in this series are my experience, my truth, and my point of view over the past 38 years that I have been in Jamaica. And it's in no way intended to slander any person, the culture of Jamaica, or the island as a whole. Hi, Mel's lovelies again. Yes, so last time we left America to go back to Germany for at least a while, and when I reached my mommy's house, she was of course very, very happy to get us back for a while. At that time my boys were 7 and 5, and I was still completely out of it. Like, the separation from my husband was a really, really rough one, and going through pregnancy all by myself with 2 little children. So we reached my mommy house and settled down a bit, which the apartment wasn't very, very big. Luckily we had 2 bedrooms, but so me and my 2 sons squeezed in one, and mommy have her own, and then we have the living room and the kitchen and so on. One of my first deeds when I came back was to call the school where I used to work. I used to do German as a foreign language in Germany, like for people coming from Poland and Russia and China and these places, and I taught them German. So I called the school and I said, hi guys, I'm back, do you have a job for me? And they were like, yeah, you can come in tomorrow. And what I did, I was like working in for teachers that, for example, were on sick leave or holidays or stuff like that. So I was a substitute at that time. Now you have to imagine, I have my 6 months belly at the time. And went to the school and did my job, and you have to imagine all those people that I was teaching were adults, no children. And I mean, a lot of them were kind of distraught because they came from a place called White Russia, which used to belong to Germany before World War II, and after that it was taken away, as much as some Polish people. Their areas where they came from used to be Germany as well, and that part of the country was taken away too. And they were kind of mixed up. They partly felt like Germans because of... I will never forget one older lady that looked at me one time with tears in her eyes. And she said, like, in Russia we were Germans, and now in Germany we are Russian. I do not belong nowhere. And she was really, really distraught, and that was basically their situation in Germany at the time, because the government, the Russian government, did allow them to travel out, come there, like migrate to Germany. But basically, they had a hard time adjusting. So that was my job. I taught them German, but not only that, we kind of tried to adjust them to the German way of living, because where they came from, it was like really backwards. I mean, you could say at the time, we were in 1986 at the time, they were in 1950, if so far.
So they never really moved forward.
Not really. I mean, it was really old-fashioned. What their beliefs, their thoughts, what they knew, what they met. So it was kind of interesting, an interesting job. So that was occupying me in the mornings, and then my older son came into the school there, because he had to go in the school, your school actually, Klosterschule. And my younger son was at home because he didn't reach any school age yet. So the time passed. I was still very sad. My mommy actually was afraid to leave me alone. Like, I remember one time she wanted to go bowling. She loved to go bowling. And then before she left, she said, "Are you sure? Can I leave? Are you sure you can stay alone?" And I said, "Mommy, you go. You know." But actually what happened, the moment she was out of the door, I started to cry. And I couldn't stop crying. That's the way I felt about this whole situation. I was kind of lost. I mean, Jamaica was still there, of course, but it was not very happy at that time for me, of course. I just came back from America because I got homesick to Germany. I was in Germany, but what was I really supposed to do there, you know? I felt completely lost at that point in time. So time progressed, and finally, well, my belly got bigger and bigger, and I decided to have the baby at home. Because I had my second son at home already, and I could not figure myself going to any hospital. So I called a midwife, very nice lady, and she came and she examined me and she said, "Oh yeah, well, you have 2 children already, and anyhow, this all looks completely nice, but the baby is still with the head up, and it needs to turn soon, because if it doesn't turn soon, you can't get a home delivery, because then it won't be able to turn anymore." So she advised me to take a big pillow and lay it on the ground and put my behind on the pillow so it was further up than my head. That's what I did. Boy, I'm telling you, any woman who has been pregnant must know, when you have a baby and you lie on your back already, you can barely breathe. Now with your bottom up, worse. It comes like everything pressed on your heart and your lungs, and you can barely do anything and breathe, and I was supposed to lay there like for 10 minutes at the time, and I could make 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or I would suffocate. But I tried at least my 5 minutes, and I did that about 2 or 3 times. And the 3rd time I suddenly felt like this swoosh in my belly, and I said, "Oh, I hope it turned." So next time when the midwife looked at me, yes, she did turn. So that was one problem less at that time. And then on the 10th of May, early in the morning, like about 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, one more thing I have to say. I talked to the baby all the time. I said, "Baby, do me a favor." Because my 2 sons' births have been not that long, really, 9 and 11 hours, but still. I said, "Baby, do me a favor. 5 hours. Let's do it in 5 hours. Please." Right? So, at 3:30 in the morning, on the 10th of May, 1986, what did happen? The water broke. That's what happened. And I started to get some contractions and stuff. So I called the midwife, and a good friend of mine wanted to be present at the birth as well. And I mean, I didn't have a father, so I said, "Okay, fine, of course, I would love that." So I called her and said, "Baby is coming." And so by 7 o'clock in the morning, everybody was gathered together. Actually, Yasha went to school it was a Saturday. Remember, no, in Germany at that time, children had to go to school on Saturdays as well, from Monday to Saturday, 6 days.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Wow.
So he was in school. We kind of planted Nikki in front of the TV, cartoon time, you know, and he loved that because, I mean, they didn't get to watch so much TV in normal days. So for him, it was like, yay, I can watch cartoon as much as I want. So he was in front of the TV. And then we were in the next room, my mother, my friend, the midwife, and me. And things kind of progressed somehow, and then suddenly nothing would go forward anymore. And then the midwife looked at my mother and said, "Do you have a big cooking pot?" My mother said, "How big?" Well, she said, "As big as possible." My mother said, "Yeah, I have a pretty big one." So the midwife asked her to bring it. Come. So we thought, oh, do we have to boil water now? So mommy brought the pot. And the midwife said, "Turn it around and put it on the bed." My mother turned it around and put it on the bed. And then the midwife said, to me, "Sit on the pot." And I was like, okay. And I kind of heaved myself up. And then my friend, she asked my friend to sit behind me and hold me. And so she would be behind my back. I would lean back, sitting on this cooking pot mostly with my bottom further out. My mommy was on one side, the midwife was on the other side, and then this push thing come and push, and well, after a few times, out came the baby on the cooking pot. So what happened? The midwife looked at her and said, "Oh, she's very dark." And well, I said, "She is mixed." Oh, she is mixed. Okay, well, that can explain the color. But the baby actually had the navel cord twice around her neck. And that is what really caused the delay in her coming out. And she didn't get this real good, you know, you get this system in I think here too, where right after the child is born, they see how it breathes, if it cries, and this and that, the color and so on. So she did not get a very good, they call it Abgar in Germany.
Abgar?
Abgar, it's like short for I don't even know. And she didn't cry. She didn't cry, but she was like, lying there, breathing, everything alright, looking around very curiously, but she didn't cry at all. Okay, so now we are waiting for the placenta to come out, which it did after a little while.
So hold on, did the midwife comment on her complexion before she got rid of the cord?
No. First she take it off, and then she watched her good, and she said, "But she's still so dark." Like she was bluish when she came out, you know, because she was kind of suffocating, you know.
Yeah.
But well, the complexion did not really change even after she became rosy and everything was good again. And then she found, oh, it's a mixed baby, so it was okay then. Anyhow, placenta came out, was put in a bucket. We cover up the bucket, put it in the corner of the room. And then I was supposed to go shower. The midwife in the meantime did look at the placenta and look and say, it looks like there's a piece missing. Now, if the placenta doesn't come out in a hole, if that piece is stuck inside, you will bleed and bleed and bleed to death if you don't get out the piece. So I was in the shower, washing off whatever, and suddenly blood come out like that. And the midwife see me and she said, "Okay, call the hospital, take a taxi, go to the hospital." I had a big thick towel underneath me. Until we reached that hospital, that towel was soaked. I lost a lot of blood, and the hospital wasn't far from where we live. So they took me in, and then they started to examine me, and now, believe you me, hello, I just had a baby. this is really raw and sore, and then they started to look around and poke, and they was, oh guys, please, don't do that to me. Anyhow, they figured out that there was something going wrong in the womb, not outside the womb, so they put me under, brought me in the operation room and took out whatever was in there. But by that time I had lost a good amount of blood, really.
So what, did they cut you open? Or?
No, just from inside, and they took it out. And lucky thing I was under, because just the examination was bad enough already.
I can't imagine.
So what happened, I woke up from my sleep from the anesthesia and was crying. I mean, tears were running down my face, crying. And then they put me up in a room. I had we brought Mayumi, the baby, with us, you know, so she was in the hospital at the same time, still not crying. Still, she was just happy.
How many hours have passed by then, probably?
Well, I did breastfeed her right after birth, and then it wasn't that many hours, like maybe 3 hours, 3-4 hours. And then, no, if it had been longer, I would be dead. If I had gotten this baby in Jamaica, I would be dead. For sure. Sure. Because here they are so slow, I would have bled to death. So I was in the room, and then they told me, oh, you lost so much blood, you cannot go home for another week or so. And I said, what? No, my mother is there with my 2 little boys, and she can't manage them, and I cannot stay here for a week. No way. So they still kind of insisted on it. So I think it was the 2nd day evening, and the babies were kept apart from us in a baby room, right? And I heard a baby cry, and something in me said right away, that's my baby. Mind you, I have never heard her cry before, you know, because she did not cry. It took her 2 days literally to start crying. So I got up from the bed, I went into the baby room, and I looked and said, is that my baby crying? And the nurse said, yes, we were just going to bring her to you. And you see how strong the bond is between mommy and child, even so. So anyhow, I could no, the next morning the doctor came in and told me about, oh no, you do still have to stay so and so long. And I said, no way. And I told him, like, jokingly, I said, no, I'm coming out here before. You said I have 6 more days to go. I'm telling you, I'm out of here in the next 2 days. And the doctor was like, cool, you know. I said, all right, let's make a bet, you know.
So mommy, in the hospital, I bet
with the doctor. So one young assistant doctor lady, when they left the room, they always was with this whole entourage. She come to me and whisper, psst, drink beetroot juice. Very good for the blood. That will help you. So right away, I went and called my mommy and said, Mommy, bring me beetroot juice. And that's what she did. She came to visit shortly after with a face. And I said, Mommy, what's wrong? You know that Nikki and Yosha, they were outside yesterday, and they started to romp, and Yosha pushed Nikki, and Nikki blick up with his head against the house wall, and him have one big bleed here. And I brought him to the hospital, and they said everything is alright. And she was like, oh my god, what did I do? And I said, Mommy, relax, you know, they are 2 little boys, those things will happen, so don't mind. I don't mind, you shouldn't mind neither. And what happened, actually, she brought him to the children's hospital, and he looked around in the hospital, and there was this playing room there, you know, with whole heap of toys, and everything was, and he loved it there so much because they wanted to keep him one night to see if he didn't get a concussion. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm staying, no problem. But he was okay, so next day they let him go. But my mother, she was completely distraught. She thought, no, I would kind of rip off her head or something. And I said, no, mommy, just relax. Never mind. Bring me to give me my beetroot juice. And I started to drink beetroot juice like crazy. I mean, basically 2 quarts for the day. Actually, I like it. It wasn't too bad. So the next day, of course, I took blood again to look. And my blood, how you call it?
Blood level, blood count.
Blood count was back to normal within like a little over a day. And I said to the doctor when he came the next morning, I said, "Can I go now?" And he looked at me and laughed and said, "All right, you won."
Shouldn't you bet for some money?
Yeah, what? Well, I bet for getting released from the hospital and it worked out. So I was happy with that. Happy enough. So home we go. Yes, wonderful. But after a few days, my one breast start to swell up here and really hurt, really hurt, and I get this big lump. So I went to the doctor and the doctor said, "Oh, you have a cyst here. So it needs to be opened, and for that you have to go in the hospital and then you have to stop breastfeed." And I said, I'm not going to stop breastfeeding no matter what. They sent me to the hospital again with the baby, cut 2 holes in the breast, put a drainage thing in it, so for any liquid could run out. And then I could not breastfeed on that breast anymore. But I insisted I don't want to stop altogether. So I did this one.
Yeah.
So for a few, and then I got antibiotics and stuff. And then after 2 days of antibiotics, they tried to give me an injection for the next antibiotics dose. And they couldn't go nowhere in. My entire venous system was striking. I mean, they hardened up. You could not push a needle in. And as it was the 3rd day, they said, "All right, fine, make it stay." But they could not put a needle in me. Can you imagine this woman come and want to give me this injection and tries and tries and tries? And I was, "Look here, man, I'm not a needle cushion here. Please don't do that to me. It hurts." So that's why she finally gave up. But it was okay. And the thing started to heal too. Everything was fine. I was discarded from the hospital again, but I couldn't breastfeed for the time being yet on that side neither. So eventually what happened is I had one huge breast and one small one. I was leaning. I literally leaning. I was like, "Oh my God, this looks ugly." So anyhow, when it started, then when it was healing, I started to give her back that breast, and she didn't want it anymore. She was so used to she was so used to this side, and just having her on that side for it was like
too small.
Whatever it happened, but at first she didn't want it, so I had to practically force her. Like saying she was really hungry, I just would put her there and not on the other side, and either you take it or you're not get none. So she finally started taking it again. But for the rest of my breastfeeding time, which all in all I breastfed her for 2.5 years, I had lean boobs. It evened out afterwards again, but for all that time, not as much anymore. It kind of evened out a little bit more, but basically I was leaning still. So anyhow, after that everything went back to normal. Baby growing and thriving. And oh, I forgot to tell you the one little smart thing. When I was still at home just having the baby, my older son came from school. Before that we had called in Nikki to show him the new baby. So he came in the room, looked at the baby, said, "Okay." And then he saw the bucket standing in the corner of the room, the bucket with the placenta. So he opened the thing, was like, "Whoa!"
That shit was more interesting than the baby.
When Yosha came from school now, him called, Yosha, come here. Brought him in the room, said, "There's the baby, but look in the bucket." So we all were cracking up, and seriously, that baby was like, "Okay, but right? The bucket." That was a funny one, yeah. So yeah, was not your usual giving birth, but anyhow. So we were in Germany then for the time being. Like I said, one went to school, one was at home, one was thriving, which Mayumi had this tendency to have 1 hour of crying time from 6 to 7 every evening. She would start 6 o'clock. I mean, almost to the dot, like she had a clock.
Yeah.
And no matter what I tried, crying for an entire hour, 7 o'clock, whoops, done. You know, and there was no reason for it whatsoever. She didn't have no pain neither. I mean, it's not like her belly was hurting her. Nothing, just crying. She did that for a good while. Anyhow, one day I get a call. At that time, what was it? She was born in 10th of May. I think it was like in June, end of June. I get a phone call from Jamaica. Now, as you remember, I had this pizza shop in Port Antonio, and I was running it with a friend. She did the pottery part and stuff. I had the kitchen. She had been working in the movies, but at the time when I left on the ship, that movie was finished, so she took over back the shop. Now, for the both of us, I taught her how to make pizza in the meantime. And I got a call from her, and she said, look, Sabina, sorry, but I decided to go back to Germany, and what you want to do with the shop? I mean, either we have to close it down completely, or you come back and run it. And I was like, oops. I was not really prepared yet to go back to Jamaica. But then again, I didn't really want to lose the shop neither. So I sat there and thinking, and what should I do? Now I have to say, in Germany, at that time, anybody who would have a baby would get 1 year, would get a certain amount of money, 1 year as parent money, they called it. So you did not really have to go to work. They would give you that money to bridge you so you could stay with your child. And I received that money as well, so I said, okay, right now I have that little money, so no matter how hard it might be now in Jamaica to earn my own money back again, at least I would have a little cover. So I decided to go back to Jamaica. My mommy, of course, didn't like that very much. But as I was saying from before, she was always a very supportive woman. I mean, she understood that I had to live my life, and that she was always welcome in my life if she wanted to come over there, which she did frequently. But so she was always very supportive and just said, well, go. So even she and her partner at the time, they brought me to West Berlin with the car. And then again another long journey started, same airline. I had to pass to go with a bus to East Berlin, Schönefeld, enter the plane and try again Russia, Shannon, this, that, and then we finally reached Cuba. I had an overnight stay in Cuba. We were the only passengers with an overnight stay, like me, my 2 sons, and the baby, in the Cuban airport, because we did not have any hotel, we didn't have anywhere to go, so we decided we are going to stay in the airport.
So why were you guys the only one?
Because nobody else was in transit. Everybody else was leaving the plane and stayed in Cuba. So we were the only people who would fly on from there to Jamaica.
So you were the only passengers for Jamaica?
Only for that flight, yeah. So as it happened, it was raining cats and dogs in Cuba. And believe you me, that airport roof was like a strainer. Everywhere in that airport, it was raining through the roof. They put pots and pans and buckets and this and that all over the place. Now, they had a little seating area, and there was, within that seating area, there was a small area where it didn't rain. We put our chairs there, and mind you, 2 small children, 1 baby, and me. And then some airport personnel that was cleaning up constantly. I mean, they were wiping the whole night with no avail. I mean, they could have made it stay too. And then we spent that night there. I mean, squished up in some chairs, and my children, I put them on the ground with our little backpacks, and we had our luggage with us, so I tried to make some beds for them, and I was sitting there with a little baby. She was 3.5 months old at the time. It was a rough night, trust me. So finally, early in the morning now, the flight was supposed to go, I think, about 10 o'clock or so. We checked back in, and other people came that would fly now from Cuba to Jamaica. But when I saw the airplane, Melody, that was one old little scroungy airplane. You know, it could hold maybe 20 passengers, that's all. I was like, I'm supposed to fly. No, because I don't like flying in the first place already. So for me it was like, no. Anyhow, I have to do what I have to do, right? So we entered that airplane. It was like 10 seats here, 10 seats there. Then you had a little cargo area, which our suitcases were packed in nets in that cargo area. You could see it, then you could look straight into the pilot cabin where the pilots were sitting.
So the luggage was in front of you guys?
In front of us on the side in this little passageway in nets, big nets. So I could see my suitcase the whole time. Or nothing like underneath and cargo and only, no. And then this old machine started to fly, and I was like, dear God, please, let me reach. Well, we reached, obviously. That was adventurous. So, I mean, I started to kind of enjoy myself once we were up in the air, and they couldn't fly that high, and you would see a lot more, you know. So actually we could see, like, when we started to fly over Jamaica, I was like, hi, you know, back home. So I enjoyed that, and we landed, and everything was cool. So I went out of the airport now to go to Port Antonio. We didn't have any much money or anything, so I decided to take our public transportation, a bus. Now, as we have been talking about already, Jamaican buses are like over full. So they squeeze us, literally squeeze us. And this minibus, I was sitting in between 2 hefty ladies, right? And I had the baby in my arm. I mean, actually, they were so hefty that I had a hard time to breastfeed her while we were driving, because I couldn't even find enough space to get my titty out and put her there. And although they were really sweet, they were really helpful, and they understood, and they kind of squished themselves to the side so I could get a little more space. And the boys were sitting somewhere behind me, squeezing as well. But okay, took the journey, reached Port Antonio finally, and then you must imagine that at that point in time, the communication between Jamaica and Germany was not all that. I mean, even to make a phone call cost a lot of money, or letters would take 4 weeks. So I had never really inquired about the house where I was living. So I kind of assumed, okay, you come there, you go to your mother-in-law, you get the key, and you go up. When I reached in Port Antonio and I reached my mother-in-law and showed her grandchild, she was happy to see her, but I mean, she was kind of very remote. And I said, okay, now, can I go up in the house? And she said, no. And I said, what do you mean, no? Oh, it's rented out. And I was like, what? So I came back with a small baby, 2 children, want to go home, and there was no home.
And you still had all your stuff there?
Everything I had was up there still. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? Went in the town. There was a friend of my husband's that had a little guest house, and they put us I told him the story and he said, yeah man, come here, there's a room, don't worry, and don't worry about payment also, you stay until you find something. So that at least was a little relief. And then I had to start look around for a place to stay. Well, I found a room with one lady in Somerstown Road. But that turned out not to be a very good decision because she rented us the room, but she was kind of gaga, you know, because I mean, we shared a bathroom, and she put her things in the bathroom, and I was not supposed to touch him, you know. But I mean, hello, you take a shower, and she had like this sponge on the side of the shower, and I was not supposed to move it, so of course it got wet. So then she would come to, oh, you wet up my sponge, and she start cuss me out and this, and I was like, well, if I could have moved it, it wouldn't get wet, you know. And then the baby did cry sometimes a bit in the night, not long, and so oh, the baby's crying, I can't take it, and so it was very, very unpleasant with her there. So of course we looked around for somewhere else to stay. And then at the same time I had to start to set up back the shop because of course when I reached here it was empty, only the furniture was there, so I had to restock it and clean up and open back and make people know that hi, we are in business again and stuff. And so while I was doing all that, I had this counter in the room where people would order and could sit in front on some table and stuff. And my Yumi was pretty small, so she ended up to sleep under the counter while I was working when she was sleeping, you know, so my counter baby. I put back the boys in school, trying to set up normalcy again in our lives. So I was pretty busy, to say the least, and trying to really do my best. And then it turned out that sooner or later I would get a little help. But that's the next story. This is it for today.
Yes guys, that's it for this story time. She said she get help. I don't know what kind of help she's talking about, honestly. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next story time. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And you know, tell a friend to tell a friend. And make all on the family members and watch it and whatsoever. And guys, for the ads, please don't make some of them run. Because at the end of the day, the ads is what is paying us. So for us to, you know, keep all of this going, and get the production to be better and stuff like that.
Tell them about your shop.
We need to get, you know, the funds rolling. So if you could, then please, you know, watch some of the ads.
Would be very nice.
Yes. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.